Well, hey fans, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Spoilers, and today we're talking spoilers for Thor Love and Thunder. The Thor franchise has been one of my least liked franchise in the MCU. I wasn't a big fan of the first Thor film only because of how short of a time it really took him to become humble and get his powers back. At least like in the way they presented it in the movie, it seemed like it happened in only a weekend. Thor the Dark World I thought was a little better than the first, but it really does seem like MCU filler. I liked the dark tone that they went for, and I liked the dark elves, even though they didn't utilize them correctly. Then you get to Thor Ragnarok, which has Hela, one of who I think the most powerful villains in the MCU has ever been. But it was too funny in the instance that anytime anything serious happened, a joke came right after. So a lot of people think it's the best Thor film. I personally tie it with the Dark World, because where you have the Dark World is too serious and is more like filler, Ragnarok was more like a long joke. But then we have Thor Love and Thunder coming up here, and this is what I actually consider the best Thor film, right above Ragnarok and the Dark World. It is probably my second Phase 4 Marvel film after Spider-Man No Way Home, and above number 3, which is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And actually, scratch that. So it'll go Spider-Man No Way Home, Thor Love and Thunder, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, then Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, then probably Black Widow, and then probably Eternals. So far, that is my ranking of the Phase 4 films. But overall, like I said, I really did enjoy Thor Love and Thunder. I gave it a decent 8.9 in my review over on the website. Please head over and check that out. But yeah, let's get into the story. So the beginning is a little bit rushed. They kind of throw a lot at you before it catches up to itself and slows down toward the middle and into the end, which I think is very good. So in the beginning, you have Gorr. He is walking on this desert planet with his daughter, and he is trying to pray to his god to help them survive. And eventually his daughter succumbs to the harsh sandstorm. She dies and he buries her in the sand. And right after this, he seems to find a oasis filled with running water and fruit. And when he gets in, he's like, oh, my God is here. He starts praying to his God to help him, but his God is like this horrid person. It's just rude, and it's like, I don't care about your praises. I'll have more followers eventually. And there's some other gods there too. There's two, I think, made out of flowers. They are alluded to be gods, but they're telling Gorr about how they're celebrating a fresh kill because they just killed somebody who had the Necro Sword, which can kill a god. And after finding out how horrible his god is, Gorr renounces him, and his hatred brings the Necrosword to him, and he kills him. Now, there's a couple of issues I have with this opening scene. Is one, I don't really care about Gorr or the fact that he just lost his daughter, because we just come up on them walking through this desert. We don't get to see their backstory. We don't get to see what happened to the rest of his people, why it is only them two, why he is so devout. We get none of that. We just are dropped dead into the middle of him going through this terrible situation. So he could have been just a horrible man before with a daughter. And it doesn't help me identify with him as much. And we get this MacGuffin, which is the Necro Sword, the sword that can kill any god. But this god has killed this being that had the Necro Sword. And the thing is, there are more weapons in the Necrosword that can kill a god. Stormbreaker can kill a god. Mjølnir can kill a god. Thanos, I forget the name of his double-bladed sword, that can kill a god. Surtur's sword killed a god. There are, the Necrosword is supposed to be this super powerful thing, but there are other things in the universe just as powerful, if not more powerful than it. So I didn't really feel like it was as important as the movie tried to make it out to be. And you have all these other gods who are afraid of it when their weapons alone can also kill each other. So I think that was it was a way to try, in the comics, Gorr has the Necro Sword. So in the movie, he has to have the Necro Sword as well. So those are my thoughts on that. But of course, he gets the Necro Sword, he starts to morph. he kills his god Rapu and makes the vow to kill all gods. And then we jump to Thor. Thor is with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and this, as technically pretty much the entire film is being narrated by Korg. And he's basically talking about how Thor grew up on Asgard. He was the crown prince. He was raised in battle. They actually have his mom carrying him into battle when he's a baby, which I thought was actually a pretty funny scene. And I think Jeremy Johns said, like, you see something, you're like, huh, that's funny. And right after you think, that's freaking stupid. So, yeah, I remember seeing it like, haha, baby Thor in battle, that's funny. And right afterwards, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty stupid. But it made me laugh. I enjoyed it. So they have him growing up, and like Korg telling the story of how he lost his hammer, got his hammer back, lost his brother again, lost his brother again for real this time, found out he had a sister, lost his dad, lost all his friends, saved all his friends, like going through all the movies that Thor has been featured in throughout the MCU. And we finally get to him joining the Guardians, and like he's fat, but he's helping the Guardians out, he's saving the day, he's kicking his butt into gear, he's getting into shape, and he finally gets back into what I would say is better shape than he was before. Because, dude, Chris Hemsworth is ripped in this movie. Like, he is diesel. So he's a Ravager now, he's helping them out, and he's really trying to find inner peace, trying to find who he's supposed to be in this post-blip universe. So he's working out with the Guardians, and he's like the strongest member of all of them. Like, whenever they really need to win a battle, they just come and say, Thor, all right, it's time for you to just end this battle. So this is actually a pretty funny scene. Like, he pulls Stormbreaker out of the ground in front of this tree he's meditating in front of, and he like rides Stormbreaker like a witch's broom down to the battle. That scene was actually it was pretty funny. I cackled so hard at that. And he lands down, he's talking to like King Yakan. And here's like some more like King Yakan. He's like, this was once our great temple until our gods were murdered. So apparently Gorr was there or around and like just killed their gods and left. And like Thor's like, all right, I'll save the day. So he rips off his cloak, shows his Ravager vest, and he just takes out all these like bird-like aliens to I think Paradise City was the song that was playing, and it's a pretty exciting and fun opening scene where he takes out all these aliens, saves the day, but he also destroys the temple in the process. They give him these goats that scream throughout the entire movie, and they're only funny for a little bit. And they're about to leave the planet with the Guardians, and they realize they're getting all these distress signals from all these, what Thor notices, these are all gods that are being killed. And he notices one distress signal is from Sif. And he's like, wait, that's Sif. So they split up. They're going to take out stuff. He's going to find Sif. And he has Stormbreaker, so Stormbreaker can take him anywhere in the universe now. He's that powerful. Like, basically, at this point, Thor is the strongest Avenger. Like, from what he does in this movie, he is clearly stronger than Hulk. He's clearly stronger than Captain Marvel. He is basically, he's like Odin. Like, his power level has increased that much, and they kind of allude to that. It's always been there within him, that he's always had like the potential to be like as powerful as Odin, and I'll get more into that later. So he changes his outfit, which is clearly like it's magic. I know they said it was technology at first, but at this point he's full on magical in the stuff that he can do. Like, he changes his outfit, and they go to this planet where they find this giant god, and I can't remember his name. Thalagar, the behemoth god of like the frontier or something like that. This giant like beast-like god who's apparently the nicest guy you'd ever meet. And he finds Sif. And they don't really, I think like if you're a strong enough Asgardian warrior, you are counted as a god and not just some random Asgardian, because Asgardians are an alien race. But if you're strong enough as an Asgardian, I guess you are a god, because Sif, I think technically is considered a god, like Thor and Loki and Odin and Frigga. So Thalagar's dead, he finds Sif, and she's like played for almost a joke in this scene, and after missing her since Thor the Dark World, I think is actually the last film we saw her in. We saw her on Loki, which is great, but like it's almost like a joke. But she's lost her arm. Apparently she followed Gorr there, and he attacked her and left. So maybe he thought he killed her, or he didn't consider her a god. I don't know how the Necrosword or Gorr knows who are gods, because they're all just aliens, basically. Just powerful aliens. So she says, leave me here to die so I can go to Valhalla. And he's like, well, to go to Valhalla, you have to die in battle. And technically, you survived the battle. So they take her back to New Asgard on Earth so that she can be healed. And this is apparently where Gorr is going next, to kill the Asgardians. So there is no answer to why Sif was not in Thor Ragnarok, or he's not like, I've missed you, where have you been? You know, half our planet was destroyed. They could have taken that time to explain that Loki sent her away, or she was off on a mission or something like that, but they just don't do that. They get to Earth in New Asgard, and they send her to the infirmary to get healed. She makes it out of the movie alive, and she's training the new Valkyrie at the end, so I'm glad we get her back. I really enjoy that character, and I hope they do her right in future Thor sequels. But they get to New Asgard. King Valkyrie, she's kind of getting bored with her mundane job. Part of the thing they said about this film when they're promoting is that as King Valkyrie be searching for her queen. At no point does she do that throughout this movie. She does not search for a queen or says, I need a queen. They do mention the fact that one of her fellow female Valkyrie warriors was like her girlfriend, and that she perished in the battle with Hela, and that she still hasn't really gotten over that. And she flirts with a couple other women, but they don't really play into that she needs to find a queen to rule beside her. I guess they just let that go in pre-production. But so Gorr starts to attack New Asgard, and Thor starts fighting the monsters. King Valkyrie shows up in her portal horse, as Thor calls it, because her Pegasus just can portal anywhere apparently. And he's fighting, and then he notices some new person fighting, and Valkyrie's like, who's that guy? She's like, oh, you're going to love that guy. So going back, Jane Foster is now Mighty Thor. She gained the abilities of Thor, and this all happens after, she discovers that she had cancer. And it's almost touching. We don't really get a lot of her backstory, but apparently her mom also had this same cancer, and her mom died of it. And it just appeared in Jane all of a sudden, stage 4. It caught her off guard, which is strange. And in the comics, I believe it is actually breast cancer that Jane Foster has before she becomes Mighty Thor. But in this movie, they don't tell you what kind of cancer she has. It's just an unnamed cancer that is stage 4 and is killing her if she does not go through all this chemo. We get small cameos by Dr. Eric Selvig and Darcy, but Darcy doesn't mention anything about her adventures, which is interesting to me. The whole thing about Phase 4, it just doesn't seem as connected as it should be. But either way, she's trying to find out all these cures for her cancer using her brain. She's not finding any cure, even though there should, I feel like that would be the way. And this is a little side note. So in Black Panther Wakanda Forever, we know that Chadwick Boseman will apparently not be in the film because he died of cancer in real life. He had stomach cancer or colon cancer, one of those, and he passed away in real life, and they're not going to recast him apparently, at least not yet, and there's going to be some tribute to him in the film. So if Wakanda has not even come up with a cure for cancer, I think it would be best if T'Challa died of cancer, just like Chadwick, and that would be like real life imitating art, or art imitating real life, I should say. And so that's why she didn't go to them, or that's why she couldn't cure herself. But she hears Mjølnir calling out to her, and she goes to New Asgard, and she looks at the broken pieces of Mjølnir. So they come back together, and she becomes Mighty Thor. Now, in the behind-the-scenes footage that we got that was leaked earlier this year, it showed that she was being levitated up in the air and floating, and that's how she became Mighty Thor. But in this movie, we don't get to see any of that. We just get to see the metal, rock, whatever pieces start to come back together in a flashback. So they're fighting. Thor sees that this new guy is a woman dressed like him, and she's wielding his hammer and doing a really good job. And this one you get to hear the Mighty Thor theme, and it is epic. It is pretty good. Michael Giacchino does a great job on that theme, and I think he was actually working with another lady on the composition for this film, if I can remember her name, Nami Melumad. But yes, together they actually do a terrific job. So they're fighting, they take down shadow monsters, and they fight Gorr, and Gorr almost stabs Thor, but he's saved by Mighty Thor, and he escapes, and he steals all of the children. So in this where you get this whole backstory about Jane and Thor and their relationship and how they eventually broke up after the Dark World because they both just got really busy and they weren't really sure what they were doing in their relationship. Of course, Thor knowing that Jane will one day die because he's an Asgardian and she's a human, and Asgardians live a lot longer than humans, stuff like that. But he really did love her, and at one point he whispers to Mjølnir, he's like, always take care of her, And so another thing about this, so he whispers that to Mjølnir, and like an inscription appears on the other side of Mjølnir, because in Thor saying that, and I guess loving her and meaning it, it put a spell on the hammer, just like the one Odin put on the hammer about anybody who possesses this hammer shall possess the power of Thor. So Thor's power was tied to the hammer, and then on top of that, that's how Jane gets it, by possessing the hammer. It is strange that Captain America didn't get any armor or anything when he picked up the hammer, but technically I guess that hammer's from the past during Dark World before Thor would have put another inscription on it. But yeah, so the thing about weapons is they're apparently sentient. Like, he talks to Mjølnir a lot in the movie, and he is still worthy. Like, he picks it up a few times, but Stormbreaker gets jealous that he's talking to his old weapon, and it comes near him and looks at him and starts misbehaving. It's a very interesting joke that I think happens a few too many times, and that's just kind of what Taika does. He plays these jokes on extra long, and they're funny, but yeah, we could have used less of it. Like the one time when they're in the meeting hall, I like that joke about it. But so they find out all the kids are gone. One of the kids turns out to be Heimdall's kid. His name is Astrid Heimdallson, but he likes rock and roll, so he now goes by Axel. But he has Heimdall's powers, the eye thing. So he contacts Thor and says, we're in the Shadow Realm, and Thor helps him out. And they figure out what they need to do to save the kids. So there's a whole funny exchange about the fact that Jane's only been a Thor for a minute. She's actually good at saving people, but her catchphrases suck. And it's really fun. This is the best Jane Foster has ever been. I really love the chemistry she had with Thor. But they go on this adventure to try and get other gods to help them because the gods are being slain. And this is where they go to Omnipotent City, which is where a lot of gods in the Marvel Cinematic Universe either convene or live or just go for orgies, because there's a whole joke about orgies in this from Zeus. But I have kind of a problem with this. So if Thor knew about all these gods, and he's apparently been to Omnipotent City before, even Valkyrie has, people know about this place. It's powered by some kind of yellow dwarf sun. Why were these guys not called to help in Avengers Endgame? In any other battle? People on Earth worship them as well, and they're all either treated like they are really powerful. For one instance, Zeus, for instance, he's potentially stronger than Thor, probably just as strong as Odin. Thor reveres him. He's I pretty much base my whole persona off of this guy. And there are so many gods in this room. And another issue I have is that, okay, we just had this whole thing with Moon Knight where you have all these Egyptian gods. I don't remember seeing a single Egyptian god in any of those seats in that pantheon of all the gods in the universe. And the thing is, why not make that connection? Because, if this is supposed to be Phase 4 and things are all supposed to be connected, I feel like they just weren't talking to each other. You should have got all the directors in the room and be like, hey, look, this is what's going on in this show. So then Taika could have been like, okay, I'll pop a couple of Egyptian gods into this room. Now, Bast is apparently there, but she's the Black Panther god. But in the MCU, we're not sure if Black Panther kind of follows Egyptian mythology or how that really works, because the Jabari worship Hanuman, who's a Indian monkey god. So I don't really know how that works, but yeah, it's just interesting that none of these people were called for help, and that we've never had mention of these other gods before. And then there's also the fact that the Asgardians are not technically gods. They're just an advanced alien race who humans began to worship. So is it once humans begin to worship you that you're moved up to the level of God? If Thanos was worshipped, would he have been a god? Because he's a long-lived alien who's super powerful. What gives you that ability? And if they pray to you, you're not really, how are you guaranteed to hear their prayers? There's just a lot in the MCU that's starting not to really make sense. Once you really start to put a little bit of thought into it. I don't know if I really like that, but it's a funny scene. They go here to beg the gods for help, and Zeus is no. He's I don't want to cause a panic, and gods only help their own people. We don't really work together, and we're only here for the orgies or whatever. And there's this great scene where they're like, all right, at least give us your Thunderbolt. Your Thunderbolt is one of the most powerful weapons in the universe. It will help us. And Zeus is like, no. So they start fighting, and this would have been a fantastic scene. And I hate that Taika Waititi ruined it. He really ruined this scene. But Zeus throws his Thunderbolt, and he apparently kills Korg. Like, Korg starts falling apart, and I was like, that is... You killed a key character, and it's your own character, and it's great that he did that. And Thor gets really mad, and you get a glimpse of old Thor, the angry, rash Thor, and he catches the Thunderbolt and throws it back at Zeus, and kills him, apparently. Turns out that Korg is still alive, and the only part of a Kronan that needs to survive is his face, because if the face survives, the whole body will eventually heal. So you're like, well, thanks for ruining that moment. That would have made this film probably perfect if the people who were supposed to die had died, like more people. So they get the Thunderbolt, kill Zeus, and they dip out. So also here, talking about the lack of connectivity, there are 2 Celestials in Omnipotent City, which doesn't make sense to me. I thought Celestials were even higher than the gods. And then you have the fact that, some of the Eternals were like the blueprint for the Olympian gods. So there's just a lot of things that aren't adding up in the MCU, and I think they really need to figure that out eventually and just go back and somehow retcon some of this stuff to make sense. But so they get the Thunderbolt and they dip out of Omnipotent City and they head toward, technically, like, I guess they head to the Shadow Realm, or they head to this planet that's in the Shadow Realm. It's at the center of the universe, because it turns out Gorr's plan that somehow Zeus knew is that he's trying to get to Eternity, who is one of the ancient gods of the universe. And apparently the rule is whoever reaches Eternity first gets whatever their wish is granted. So Gorr gets there, and they get to this desolate planet, and this is like a beautiful scene. I'll get to the beautiful scene, but they're going through, there's like some kind of hut there, where it turns out Gorr's plan is to get Stormbreaker so he can use the Bifrost to activate a portal to get to Eternity. Why is it the Bifrost? That's like a convenience. Like, oh, the Bifrost is the only way to get to Eternity. With all these gods in the universe, the Norse mythology Bifrost is what will get you there. It should have been some other thing that he was trying to get to help him get there. But he uses this moment, he captures them, and he tells Jane about how, like, the gods have done nothing for you. Look, you have cancer, and they're just going to let you die. Valkyrie, how many times did you pray to the gods to help you when you and your sisters were being killed fighting Hela? And there's this true emotion in her eyes where she's like looking, and then she's like he's telling the truth. Like, Odin did nothing to help them when they were fighting Hela, when Odin could have done it himself. So there is some truth in the stuff he's saying about the way these gods are just not living up to the name. But as we know, they're not gods. They're just super powerful beings who are being worshipped. And technically Valkyrie, I guess at this point, is a god as well, because I don't know how, like I said, I don't know how the god status works in the MCU anymore. So they escape, and they have like this big battle on this desolate moon thing. And it's like, since they're in the Shadow Realm, it's mostly in black and white, except for when they're using their abilities. You get like a little splash of color, and it looks like something out of a Frank Miller novel. It is so great. Like, it's pretty much like Sin City is what it kind of looks like. Here's another scene where Gorr gets the lightning bolt and he stabs Valkyrie, and you're like, oh, they're gonna kill Valkyrie too. This is awesome. She survives. She survives the scene. Like, everybody is beaten, and he tries to get Stormbreaker away because Jane's like, that's what he's gonna use to get to Eternity. So he calls Stormbreaker to take them back to New Asgard, and it starts pulling away, but Gorr catches it, and they just get teleported away, and he keeps Stormbreaker so now he can get there. And it turns out Jane, when they land on Earth, she loses her hammer, and he found out she had cancer earlier when they professed their love for each other. And I totally skipped over. There's like an amazing scene where they kiss, where Thor and Mighty Thor talk about how much they love each other, how much they've missed each other. But that's when he sees like how weak and frail she is outside of her Thor state. And it turns out, he tells her, like, every time you use this hammer, it is basically stopping your body from fighting the cancer, because it's giving all of its strength to keep you in this form. So I just want you to heal. I'll take care of Gorr. So she says, all right, I won't use the hammer. You go save all the kids. So he has Zeus's Thunderbolt, which somehow also allows him to teleport. Like, and that's what just means, like, Thor is just pretty much all powerful at this point. So he transports to like this temple where Gorr is, and Gorr is opening this portal to eternity, and he has Thunderbolt, and they fight, and he gives, in what is a true Rick and Morty moment, he grants like all the Asgardian / alien kids that are with him the powers of Thor. So whatever weapons they have contains like the power of Thor. So you have this one kid that has like a fluffy bunny that can now shoot laser eyes, and one kid has like a big wrench thing, and it's just really awesome. Side note, one of the kids is a werewolf. His alien species is like lichen something. So I'm starting to think that vampires and lichens are all aliens in the MCU. I guess we'll find out when Werewolf by Night and Blade come out. So the kids are fighting all the shadow monsters. Thor is fighting Gorr, and as he's losing, of course, Stormbreaker calls out to Jane, and she shows up, and she's fighting him, and they're just having this awesome brawl, and they end up destroying the Necrosword, which, like I said, really meant nothing throughout this whole series. But Gorr manages to make it through the portal, and like Jane is very weakened at this point, and they go through to stop him. And so at this point, Gorr is basically won. He's taunting them. He says, "What are you going to do now? I'm about to wish for the extinction of all the gods." And Thor is like, "Well, you're right. You've won. And in this moment, you can do what you really should do instead of killing us. So I'm going to go spend my last moments with the one I love, who is Jane." So Thor goes to be with Jane during her dying moments because her body's now weak from using the Thor powers again. And Gorr realizes the error of his ways, and his one wish, which is so sweet, and I think it wraps the film up great, is to bring his daughter back to life. And she comes back to life, and like there's this cool scene where she's walking in this final realm. Actually, it looks like if you've played Kingdom Hearts 3, the final world, which is like water and clear skies, that's what this world looks like. And it has eternity, which looks like just an outline of space as a female there. But she's walking, and like her reflection is basically eternity, but it's his daughter. And he's like, who will care for her? And basically Jane says she will be cared for, meaning Thor will take care of Gorr's daughter for him. In that instance, Gorr dies and Jane dies, and Jane turns into the godly Stardust, which apparently happens to all gods when they die. But Loki didn't turn to godly Stardust. He just becomes a corpse. So I guess only if you're going to Valhalla, you become godly Stardust, because that's what happened to Thor's mom and Odin. None of the Warriors 3 turned to godly Stardust. So I don't, like I said, the gods are weird in the MCU. And then that kind of like ends the story, and New Asgard goes back to normal, and Thor is raising Gorr's daughter, which he names Love. She calls him Uncle Thor, and she can wield Stormbreaker and he can wield Mjølnir, and they go around and they help people. And that's where you get to the true title of the film, because it appears at the end. Because as Korg's telling the story, he's like, you got the girl born from Destiny and Thor, and they're now known as Love and Thunder when they save people. So it made for like a truly touching ending. And then you get in the post-credit scenes that Zeus survived his ordeal with the gang, and he sends his son Hercules to go kill Thor, which is a pretty exciting scene to see where they move forward with that. And at the very end, Jane appears in Valhalla, where she's greeted by Heimdall, who thanks her for looking after his son. So I think we will definitely see a lot of people again, because you can bring people back to life in the MCU whenever you want. And of course there are spells and other things to do that. But like I said, overall, I really did enjoy this picture. A lot of gay stuff in the movie. A lot of gay stuff. So I'm not sure how many conservative people will actually like this, because of the fact that it's a very LGBTQ friendly film, more so than any other Marvel movie. Because let's face it, like America Chavez and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, she only had the pin and the two moms, but she never mentions it about herself. But in this, you got Valkyrie, who's openly bisexual. You got Korg, apparently. His whole race is men, so he talks about his two dads, so that's like all they have. And you have that scene where Thor gets his clothes knocked off by Zeus, and like as the women faint, some of the men start fainting too. It's hilarious, but they Taika put it all in there, and it's just how the movie is. There's also something interesting, because you got Hercules coming in. So in the comics, Hercules is gay as well. So I'm pretty sure it would be very upsetting to a lot of people if Hercules was not gay in the MCU as well. If he's gay in the comics, I'm pretty sure they're going to move forward with that. Another funny thing about that scene where Zeus flicks off Thor's clothes, like he's about to do it to the girls too, and they're all like, oh, nope, you can see who we are. And it's funny because, every fan was like, ooh, we get to see the girls naked too. But, they kind of shut that down. It's supposed to be a family-friendly movie. So, yeah. With Thor practically being an awesome uncle at this point and finding out Jane is in Valhalla, I do believe they are going to move forward with more Thor films. Of course, as I forgot to mention, you also have Hercules now hunting him down to kill him. The other gods probably not so happy with him as well. And considering that the runs that these comics were based off of, I feel that the next Thor film should be titled Thor at the Gates of Valhalla, based off of the comic run where Mighty Thor has died in that run and Thor needs to move forward with what he's going to do with himself, and I think it is set in the future. But I mean, like an adaptation of that, definitely take the title. You can wrap in some more stories as well. I think they should bring in Daniel Craig as Balder, another relative of Thor's, who's supposed to be his brother in the comics. They can keep him as his brother or make him just another Asgardian in the future, but bring him in. He was supposed to appear in Multiverse of Madness, but Daniel Craig decided not to shoot the scene because he didn't think it was worth bringing COVID back to his family. But yes, moving forward, I think that should be Thor 5. Balder, Hercules, and them figuring out a way to get some warriors from Valhalla. Maybe Thor dies and goes to Valhalla. I'm not exactly sure how they should do it, but I think at this point, Thor should get at least 6 movies. Why not? Spider-Man's getting a 4th. It'll be those 2 moving forward. Captain America's getting a 4th, but of course it's going to be Anthony Mackie as the new Captain America after the upgrade from Falcon. And while I enjoy Taika Waititi's style, his jokey atmosphere, I think he has done 2 of these Thor movies. It is time for him to move on. We should bring in a new, fresh director to handle Thor 5 and Thor 6 if they decide to do that. I don't have anybody in mind at the moment, but I'm sure that they will find somebody who can handle this franchise and, do a good job. It's not that hard, especially at this point, to make a good Thor film, I think. And surprisingly, also another thought I had, there's no Loki in this film. I really thought we were going to get a cameo from Tom Hiddleston as Loki after the events of Loki season 1 in this movie. Like he was going to come through a TVA portal and say, Thor, I need your help. But we don't get that at all. So hopefully we get that in Thor 5, or hopefully we get like Thor appearing in this season 2 of Loki. We'll see where they move forward with that. But I really need these characters to come together again. I think that'll be one of like the bigger MCU moments in these new phases, when Thor finally gets to see a version of his brother again and be upset that I thought you were dead again. So yeah, that'll be great. That'll be great to see. But that is it for me, guys. Remember, you can view this spoiler review on YouTube and the blog flipfrogllc.com/flixfrog. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Reddit. And please, pretty please, everybody, hey, come here, listen. Make sure that you subscribe. Yes, subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Facebook page, everything. Make sure you like, comment, and share. We are currently running a competition through the end of July where if you do all that, you could win a 4K copy of Edge of Tomorrow. So make like a frog and jump on that. My next Let's Talk Spoilers will be Miss Marvel. I've pretty much enjoyed the show. It's kind of gone down week to week for me, but can't wait to talk about that. And until next time, I'll be seeing you.